All right, guys, welcome to the podcast. This is my third attempt at recording this. Last attempt had a lot of technical difficulties and a fireworks show, so here's that. You get the immediate results. But what I've changed with myself is this. Are you? Try to actually refocus my mind a little bit. Enjoy the fireworks show while I'm doing that. That ended up making the recording a little bit difficult, threw off my focus. I was already pretty tired, and it was one of those where I'm just like, you know what, we're just gonna try again tomorrow. So this one may be a little bit quicker because I do want to get through it pretty quick without wasting too much time because once again, this is my third time on the video and I'm ready to move on. But what I've realized too in this podcast is that it's been kind of unintentional, but something that I've actually kind of enjoyed on it is the fact that you're kind of getting a behind the scenes each time where I'm trying to, create the content or make the show, whatever you want to say, to where I'm trying to talk about the things I'm passionate about, but I'm also learning while I'm doing it. And you're kind of seeing that unintentionally, but it's kind of one of those where I kind of want to keep it in there now because I think it's pretty, kind of funny. So it's been before we jump into it, it's just been one of those where you're seeing all the problems, you're seeing the mishaps with the tripods and the gimbals and the audio and everything just being goofy. So I hope that's something that you kind of find enjoyable because this is real as it gets. Because this is a lot harder than what people think. Your pride and ego tells you that when you're seeing these people online, you can actually do what they do. It's easy. Podcasting's just talking. Well, it is and it isn't, and maybe it's just me that makes it more difficult than what it really is. But anyways, just follow along with that. All right, this week we're talking about the compound effect. Now, all these podcasts are typically aligned with the newsletter that I release every Monday morning. The newsletter is a lot more polished. I take my time on it. I don't stutter and get off topic and do all that near as much. So if you want a more concise, well polished version of this, and you're more of a reader than a listener, maybe you're more crunched for time, follow that newsletter. It's called The Anchor Point by Cameron Frazier. It is on Beehive, the website. So I'll try to get that posted in the link below. So, anyways, this is called the compound effect. So, the compound effect is essentially when we think about investments or interest, and you think about compounding interest or compounding investments, it's typically financial. But what about when it's more personal? So, here's an example. If I gave you $2,400 to invest and you had to invest it today, how would you invest it? What would your decision making process be on investing that? What would you be intentional about? What would you think about? So let's reframe that. Instead of saying $2,400, let's say 24 hours. How are you going to invest that 24 hours on yourself, right? For development. So there's obviously good investments and bad investments. And the realization is that you're investing right now. Like you're investing at this moment, this hour, this day, this last week. You've invested a lot of your time. It's just either a good investment or not, right? So a lot of my investments over time have not been good. It's just been consuming meaningless content. It's doing just goofy, different, let's see. It might be frivolous endeavors. It might be something like getting good at pickleball, whatever it might be. Like you spent time and focus on investing, right? And I don't want to say that everything's got to be like, oh, you got to get better. You got to get better all the time. If you're not getting better, you're wasting life. That's not what I'm saying. Like there's investment in rest, investment in enjoyable activities, investment in relationships. Those are all really good things. But I'm really talking about, let's just look at your week. If you write down everything that you did and that you invested in, talking about your time, if you replicated that week for 52 weeks or even more than that, what is the end result? Like, what are you going to be good at? What are you going to be bad at? Where did you spend most of your time? What's the little pie graph of what your time is going to be? And that's going to make you realize, okay, maybe I'm investing pretty well, maybe I'm not. So the idea of the compounding effect is that these little small investments over time increase at somewhat of an exponential rate. So the idea here is like if in the compounding interest or compounding investments, it's the idea like if you start out at 100 and you get a 5% return, you now have 105, right? Well, now you're reinvesting that 105. So if you get another 5%, you're now getting even more. You're not just investing on that same 100. So what I mean by that in the personal sense is that let's just say you spend 3 months or 6 months investing your time on understanding nutrition and basic, working out, weight training, and cardio, right? Just 6 months, not a relatively long section of your life, but every moment after that, you're now a person who understands nutrition and physical activity and exercise and cardio and weight training, right? So every decision made after that is not one that's made on the same you. It's the you that's actually learned um, all that having the knowledge and the health and fitness. So now you would be a person, 2 years from now, that is actually investing with the mindset and the knowledge of what you've already learned, if that makes sense. So if you take it in the literal health point of view, if you make small investments in your health of walking 15 minutes a day or training 15 minutes a day, over time, that's eventually going to lead to a body that's at least well trained, a lot more well trained than you would have been if you haven't. So it's not just that 15 minutes that makes a different difference. Is that 15 minutes on top of another 15 minutes on top of another 15 minutes, and then eventually you're putting that 15 minutes on a body who's already trained for hours at a time, and it's built that discipline. So the whole idea of the compounding effect is that if you start investing your time wisely on skill building and development in intentional areas of your life, it's going to give you skills that are going to lead to exponential gain, right? So, for example, video editing. So, if I spend an hour learning how to video edit a timeline and make captions or whatever else, I don't have to spend the same time doing that again. I now have that skill set. So, the next time I invest that time, I might learn lighting or sound or color grading so that each time, and once I've gotten a base understanding of video editing, everything I do from here on out is now that much better because I've invested that time on it. So when it comes to the compound effect, just know that how you invest your time matters. And even small investments over time, if repeated, can lead to really big gain because you're increasing the value, right? The arbitrary number you want to give yourself in whatever category over time. And that same investment is going to compound on a better self or a better you each time if it's replicated. So that's the idea of the compound effect. I go into a little bit more detail or clarity, I would say, in the newsletter. Um, but this kind of comes from the concept of Socrates, who says an unexamined life is a life not worth living. So if you really look at your time as investments and reflect on it and then intentionally plan forward, it gives you a much more intentional plan by examining your life and kind of tailoring a future that makes more sense to you. It kind of gives you with the end in mind of how you're going to live now based on what you've reflected on in the past. You realize, like, I wasted a lot of time, and everybody does. I would, they always make that question, would you rather have $1 million now or go back to when you're 18 with what the knowledge you have now? I'm like, absolutely go back to 18. Like, I don't want to change any of my experiences, like my kids and my wife's, obviously. But the thought of that is like, what does the knowledge mean, or how much is your knowledge valuable, or how valuable is your knowledge, right? So, anyways, the concept is, examining your life and relaying it and repeating it over and again, like just either your week, your day, replicate it over and over again. And does that lead to a self that you want to have one day? So when I say investing your time, there's really 4 areas that I've came up with that seem to matter the most. Excuse me. One is focus. Like, what are you focused on? Like, are you focused on positive things, negative things? Are you focused on what others have and you're jealous that they have it? Are you focused on drama? Are you focused on trivial things like I mentioned earlier, pickleball or golf or whatever else? If your whole focus is on something, is that something valuable, and is it producing good, like, fruit in your life? Is it producing virtues and values that mean more than surface level stuff? And there's nothing wrong with pickleball or golf. I mean, people have hobbies, and I'm a hobbyist myself. If you ask my wife, I probably have a couple too many. But it's one of those, when you think about your focus, what are you focused on? Is it focused on, "Hey, I really want to focus on being a great dad. I want to be focused on being a great spouse. I want to be focused on being a good leader at work," or whatever it might be. if you're where your focus is, there your everything else follows, right? So if you're not focused on anything, maybe it's a lack of focus. Maybe it's just focused on the next shiny thing all the time. Just be cognizant of like, hey, where am I spending? What are most of my thoughts on? What is my focus on? And another way to look at that is like, where's my money going? Where's my time going? And that's where you're going to see your focus going. So your focus is the starting point. The next is your effort. You might be focused on really, something really good like volunteering and feeding the hungry or starting a business or whatever that thing might be. But if your effort sucks, then it's never going to amount to anything, because you could have the best focus in the world on stuff that matters the most, but if you never have any effort behind it, it's not going to make a difference. But vice versa, you could have a lot of effort and no focus and you're still going to get nowhere. So I realized that focus and effort are two of the pillars we're talking about. The other two would be direction. And when I say direction, I almost mean, I would say, guidance through like resources and understanding. This is where if focus is like, let's just use like rowing a boat across the ocean. You have a focus of like, I'm going to get to the other side, I'm going to row, I'm going to do this. The effort is how good you're actually going to row. But if you don't have a good direction, like a literal direction, like I need to go this many clicks north or whatever it might be, however you want to this many degrees north, whatever it might be, if you don't have good direction, you may eventually get there, but it may be the hard way. You might be going off track and going back and forth. Direction is like, am I going the right way at the right time? Like, is this the path? And the way direction works is you might have really good focus, you might have really good effort, but if it's not really being used efficiently or guided efficiently or directed efficiently, then you could be wasting a lot of time. Um, Direction in my life, I realized that once I had a good focus and I know I have, good effort, this is where we're going to get into the other kind of tips and tricks later. But like, you really need to have some people around you that can help direct you, some people with some experience or even resources, books, podcasts of those who can really guide you of like, hey, don't make this mistake. If you're starting a business, do it this way, whatever it might be. When you have good direction, then everything seems to fall in place a little easier. Path gets a little straighter and little less jagged and a little less, staying on the smooth part of it. So focus, effort, direction. And the last one is purpose. And when I mean purpose, it's kind of like the bigger, more intrinsic purpose in life. Like, is this fitting a bigger purpose? Is it, if your focus is on, you know, fixing up old cars and you do it well, and even somebody showing you how to do it and you have it, you're making a business, but it's not really producing a good purpose, whether it's like growing you personally or helping out your family or having a serving God, whatever it might be, then the purpose itself is kind of where you almost like the starting point really of like, hey, what is my purpose in life? What is the purpose of this in my life? Am I watching, am I gaming 6 hours a day? But it depends on how you're gaming. If that's producing a means to the end of like for your family and you're doing it in a good way and it's having good outreach to people and it has a greater purpose, yes. If you're gaming 6 hours a day after you work 8 hours a day and you're neglecting family and responsibilities, the purpose of that 6 hours of your life that you're investing is really not that great. So it doesn't really mean like this is good or this is bad. It's more, if you're investing in it, then what is the purpose of your investment, if that makes sense? So those are the four areas when I think about investing my time is going to be your focus, your effort, your direction, and your overall purpose. Now, the four other tips I have, or what I would say, the additionally, there's four tips I would have that is really expedited. Is that the word? Yeah, expedited like my growth, and in those investments would be one, like I mentioned earlier, is like seeking mentors, because time and experience is obviously what we're talking about investing. When you have somebody who is in whatever sense where you want to be, whether it's, I think most of my mentors are really around my faith, around parenting as fathers, other leaders, and those mentors in my life have really expedited my growth because they've already lived. They're older than me. They've lived more life than I have. They made more good choices. They made more bad choices. They've seen more situations happen in life that I can lean on them. So really that time, you're almost stealing time. It's almost like you have other investors into your investment, if that makes sense. It's like if you are the ultimate investment, you have other investors into it now, meaning like I'm going to use the time that I've gained, the experience that I've gained, the skills that I have, and I'm going to invest it into you. So I would always be seeking mentors because that is the best resource you can have. It's one of those to where, you can Google stuff, you can use ChatGPT, you can watch videos, but until you can sit around a dinner table or sit around a campfire and talk about somebody about some real stuff, real life, whether it's an area you're trying to either grow in your health, your business, your finance, your family, your leadership, whatever it might be, when you can lean on mentors who have done it well, that is the absolute best resource you could have, bar none. So seek mentors. And I've actually written on this before, and I'll make a video on it pretty soon because of how valuable it's been in my life. It's definitely one of the anchor points. I think it's one of the first, maybe 5 or 10 if you go to the website and kind of scroll down and see it. But seeking mentors is number one recommended thing to do. Second one, this one's pretty self-explanatory. Is control the content you consume. This is such a big point. Time of your day. I think the average screen time for the American is like 6.5 to 7.5 hours now. I think that's phone time. That's not including just like devices that are connected to the internet. So when I'm talking about controlling your content, it's one of those where short form media, there's so much research on short form media, so how it's bad to you. So if you're going to consume short form media, make sure it's at least somewhat educational versus just entertainment. And a lot of short form media isn't even, I wouldn't even call it entertainment. It's just distracting. It's just noise. It's nothing. I know I can scroll for 2 hours on TikTok and then like kind of like wake up out of a trance and be like, what the heck did I just do the last 2 hours? What did I even learn? Was there anything of value? And like most of the time it's just, starts off kind of cool stuff. It might start off like hunting and fishing videos. It might start off like Christian content. It might start off like Chris Williamson and that kind of stuff. But you keep scrolling, all of a sudden I'm watching like road rage, like fights on the street. I'm like, what am I even doing? I don't know how it gets there, but I guess it just gets my attention for a second and then the algorithm takes over. But when you're talking about controlling the content, just be very cognizant of it. And you can there's ways to, clean up your feed a little bit. But um, I'm not even saying social media is bad. It's once again, just think about like the effort, the focus and the purpose behind it at the end of the day. So control the content because it can slip away from you. It's one of those, it's such a slippery slope to where it's like, I'm just going to open the app for a second. And all of a sudden you lost 2 hours. It's like if time was money, you just lit that time on fire, right? Or lit that money on fire. So just be cognizant of what content you're consuming. And there's, we're going to get to the next point here in a second, obviously. But it doesn't have to be like all or nothing to where it's like, I can only just read like Huberman from here on out. It's not really saying that. It's one of those. It's like you might find a podcast that you enjoy listening to that kind of challenges you. It kind of teaches you, and you might just change it to on your car ride to work instead of listening to music. You listen to that, and that's one way of controlling your content. It doesn't mean just deleting all the apps. It's just finding those, and then that brings me to another point, which is just start really small. Like don't start changing everything all at once when it comes to investing your time because that typically doesn't last. Think of it like you know investing, $300 and then another $300 and then another $300 and then you just stop investing overall. You're right. So in 3 months, whatever, you invested $900 instead of investing just $100 a month. And then by the end of the year, you invested so much more and then it's compounded. So starting small doesn't necessarily just mean, you know, it's just I would be cautious in changing too much too quick when it comes to your time and your habits because they're less likely to take hold versus smaller habits. There's a book, Atomic Habits. It's one of the most popular self development books out there. 10 out of 10, 100% read it. If not, watch a YouTube like short video on it because it is truly life changing when you apply those principles and start doing those small atomic, meaning small, not like atomic bomb, but like atomic small habits in your life. You see the biggest outcome over time, and those are the ones that are actually sustainable. Now, if I was going to say invest big or what's going to boost your investments over time, it's actually going to be seeking discomfort. The times that I've grown the absolute most of my life were probably the times I was the most uncomfortable. I was the most scared to do it. I was the most fearful or hesitant, reluctant. Um, it was unpleasant. However you want to say it, like the things that challenged me and grew me the most was almost like an exponential growth factor of my time. So investing, you know, a small part here and there. It just seems like these things completely changed me in a short amount of time because of how the discomfort or with the courage or the fear it conquered changed me. So here's an example. So the first video that I posted on here, right? I was very fearful. It was not comfortable to do. I know I sound awkward on camera. I knew there was a lot of issues with it. Like I was fearful of it. Like I didn't want to press post. I've created videos for a long time. Most of my stuff is private. It's just vacation videos. It's videos that I enjoyed making because I enjoyed making videos. I was always really scared to post those videos and to push them out there like this. But once I did it the first time, like that discomfort, the uncomfortable fear of like, oh no, people are going to judge me, the fear of others, perception of others. Once that kind of fear or discomfort was conquered, that is now a whole new self, right? So, if you're working out, it takes long time to see any kind of change, right? If you're running, it takes a long time to build a cardio base. But when you conquer a fear, it's like that, like something changes in you so quickly. Now that compound investment is completely changed. It is just like the market was just great for a moment and everything spiked, and now you're just doing really well. That investment is just like doing phenomenal, right? So here's a couple of examples. Like once again, like posting a video. Now all the time I spend on this is no longer in the fear of posting the video. Like I still have some, but it's not near because I've conquered that fear. It was discomfort. I sought it and conquered it, that fear of judgment or whatever it might be. I'm now over that. So now all the other time I'm not have that thought in the back of my mind of like, oh, should I post this? I probably shouldn't post it. And, I'm not living in that discomfort. Another one was in a very different, vein. Was doing a ultra marathon with my brothers. It was one of those I was very scared to do it. It was very uncomfortable. I did about a 5 month. I've always been kind of a runner, but I did about a 5 month training plan, and training plan is used very loosely here. But I essentially signed up for an ultra marathon that was 32 miles in December, at the end of December, and it was in May. There was a lot of time in those 5 months of training and discipline and kind of sucky moments where I go out and run on these county roads at like 10 o'clock at night, getting 10, 12 miles in or whatever it might be, just in training. And it was awful. But really, and relatively speaking, the 5 months in that ultra marathon completely changed just the mental framework I had. It was like that investment like doubled and tripled way quicker than most just because it was so uncomfortable. Other areas that I've sought discomfort and seen a lot of, good return on investment was, I did jujitsu for a year, and it was really hard. And it was more because I was scared to do it and I was fearful of doing it. I thought about doing it for a long time, but I'm like, man, it's just scary to go in there. It's intimidating to walk into a gym and you've never done anything like that before. You've never done any kind of combat sports. It was just completely just so out of my comfort zone. And I went to the first one. I was like, oh man, gosh, what's going to happen? They're just going to make me look bad, and I'm just going to get hurt, or like maybe I'm just going to get choked out, and I'm just going to look stupid and goofy. And all that was true. Like I did. I think it was like 8 times that first day. I felt like I got um, tapped out and submitted and chokeholds and arm bars and all the things. Like I was just the new white belt and just got torched. But and then they were cool about it. I mean, it's not like they were just teeing off on me or anything, but it was one of those to where like the worst outcome happened, and the next day I was so excited to go back. Like the fear of what's kept me from it so long, all of it absolutely happened, but I still wanted to go back the next day because what I feared was not near as bad as I thought. It was a misconception. It was vague, just mental. I don't even know how to explain it. It was just like a lie. It was like, yeah, this is going to be awful, but like that's part of the growth process. And since then, I completely changed my whole process on how I do things that scare me. Like that alone, just I still suck at jujitsu. Like I've never, I did it for a year, and I had to stop due to some scheduling issues and injury, and it just kind of I haven't gone back since. But it's one of those I expect to one day. But still, it just changed my whole mind of like, hey, just because it's scary doesn't mean I shouldn't do it. And just because I'm fearful of it, that probably means if I can conquer that fear, I don't have to hold that weight anymore. It's like the investment in yourself just doubles and triples so quickly. So seeking discomfort and doing things that scare you, and like all the cliches are so true around it. I mean, I wish, it's one of those you just have to eventually make the decision to do it. And a lot of it is just those decisions of saying yes to something, that investment of time or of effort, or if you know there's an opportunity to do something that is you're scared of or feel fearful, like a 10 times out of 10, I recommend it. Like this, just posting these videos like this has almost been like an immersion therapy of I'm so fearful of others and judgment and failing and all of this. And posting these videos are like proving that that's not worthy of being fearful. Therefore, it's freeing me and creating a better self each and every time I do it, if that makes sense. And I know I'm talking about myself a lot, but I don't know how else to explain this that's not in a more personal and real way. Um, So each one of my anchor points always go into like a biblical perspective over a concept that I'm wanting to write about or wrestling with. It's something within the self-development framework, but what is the biblical perspective on it? And this one is no different. The whole idea of wisdom or seeking wisdom and investing into self, like there's no better return on investment than trying to improve in the elements of your faith and understanding of the Bible, of God, of the Word, of humans interacting with God's relationship with us, and our relationship with God. There's no better investment. And the more I've invested into my faith, has always yielded the biggest returns, whether it was just understanding or peace or, you know, just goodness. And I don't know how else to explain it, but there's in Galatians 5:22, there's what's called the fruit of the Spirit, meaning when we are in Christ, what are the things that are produced in us through Him? And that is, the verse, it is just peace, love, joy, gentleness, kindness, self-control, forbearance. It's, perseverance, essentially what it's saying. All of the good virtues and qualities in life that people are going to strive for, that they look into the entire world for, and it always falls short, is in Christ. And investing in that faith is how you receive it. And it's not our effort that we receive it. It's Christ in us. And when we invest in Him, invest in the Word, invest in the faith, that is the ROI, the return on investment. And even just like seeking wisdom and how it treats you, like the whole book of Proverbs in the Bible is all about just seeking wisdom and understanding and learning, like the investment of the mind. That is 100% where, if I would say, if you're going to listen to one thing I say today, is start to seek and invest in your faith and learn through the Bible. Invest in your mind, like the Romans 12:2, I think it is, states, do not conform in the ways of the world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, essentially saying the ways of the world are going to try to make you do certain things and seek satisfaction and pleasure and like kind of what I'd call like, I don't know, just like fool's gold, essentially, is things that you think you want, but they actually aren't valuable, versus the things that are valuable are going to be in Christ. And you renew your mind to stop thinking about those worldly things and thinking about Jesus and following Him. And that fruit that follows Him is actually the real value, the real gold. So every sense of the word, in the sense, like that is where the investment of my time and growing in my faith, and whether it's seeking mentors, 100% is where I've grown the most. Reading the Bible is very difficult if you just open it up and you really have no frame of understanding. I didn't even open a Bible until I was 18, really. But that is very difficult. It's confusing. It's hard. It doesn't really make sense at first. There's so much context that you just don't understand. Seeking mentors is where you need to do that. And where I would recommend, just like in the normal world, I would say, or just like the worldly ways, find those who have fruit that you want. Essentially, it's like if you see somebody who has peace and love and joy, and it seems like even in the hardest moments they still have the peace, they lose loved ones and they still have something you don't understand, that is the people you need to seek and say, hey, can you help me understand, like, why do you have what is this hope that you have? Tell me about it. What does church mean to you? Like, and those people will probably have really good answers. And when it comes to control the content, absolutely. I mean, there's so much where like my mind, I'm thinking 5 years ago, my content feed was so different than it is now, and not necessarily in a bad way. It was Rogan, it was Williamson, it was all of those. But now there's just so many of those same minds in the faith of where, just people that I consume, whether it's like Josh Howerton or Joby Martin or John Piper. I'm just, Matt Chandler. Those people just come up my feed so much, and they're making videos and podcasts that are just as interesting. It's just on the purpose and topic that is good, which is biblical and godly principles, right? Um, seeking discomfort. Like there's a quote that says, "Where your fear is, that is where your faith will grow." And doing the things that scare you the most, once you do them once, it is ridiculous because you'll look back, why did I ever fear that? So like inviting, just at talking to somebody about faith and just asking questions. I used to fear doing that because I was like, I'm going to sound so stupid because I don't know. But that's where the conversation, asking good questions comes in. And now that is what almost one of my favorite things to do is start talking about those things with people. Like, hey, how did you interpret that? Or what was your thoughts on this? Or I don't understand this verse. Like I love doing that now. And it's something I used to fear. Starting a Bible study, praying out loud, whatever it might be, like whatever that thing is you're fearing the most, I'm telling you, that is where your faith will grow the most. And that by definition is acting on faith, because if you're scared to do it, reluctant to do it, unwillful, you don't want to, doing it is a act of faith because you're saying, I'm going to choose God's will over my selfish ambitions of staying in my comfort zone or whatever it might be. So the compound effect of investing in your faith, both in your mind and your body and your soul, and seeking discomfort and seeking mentors and controlling content, I'm telling you that the ROI, the return on your investment is so exponential. I have no other words for it. It is truly infinitely exponential because it is talking about your eternity. It's talking about your fate. It's talking about the long run, the long game. And the last thing I would recommend is just starting small. Once again, like don't just dive into it, because doing too much too fast is just a recipe for, it not being successful. I mean, it's once again starting with the car ride, starting with a 1 minute devotional each day, on your lunch break or whatever it might be. It doesn't have to be like all of a sudden you're doing all of these things. It's just you're slowly adding that habit, it's like that compounding effect of like building the discipline of like every day at lunch before I eat, I'm gonna say a quick prayer. I'm gonna do a 1 minute devotional, or I'm gonna listen to one video a day, like or a week, whatever it might be on Sundays. Um, that's really about it. Like I said, I'm just going to kind of close with, I really appreciate anybody following along at this point, because it's just so, I mean, relatively speaking, I know it's bad, but it's one of those, like I said, in this, I know investing in this is only going to have really good outcomes because I'm trusting the process between my focus, effort, direction, and purpose with this. If nothing else, it's like immersion therapy. I think I said that at the start of the video, to where it's like it's pushing me in a place that it's the discomfort, it's the discipline, it's the I'm going to post videos weekly, to eventually I'm posting videos daily. And it's one of those where anytime I've sought that discomfort, and especially when it required discipline, whether it's running, working out, training plans, waking up early, it's always yielded the most, return. So the video is the next process. I mean, the writing was the one before this, which if you know me, like I was never writing or a writer. Like this is not something that is natural to me at all. It's one of those, the more discomfort part of it is, I was a kid who, I cheated on essays and all that stuff in school and not proud of a lot of things that I did. But it was one of those, I never really liked writing. It was where, I hated ELER. I hated all of the content. It was, I didn't like reading, and now I'm consumed by it. I'm consuming it all the time. So the compounding effect of investing in difficult things has just always yielded a lot. And like I said, this video process, it's been fun. The whole behind the scenes is, in 3 times in this, my phone ran out of storage, which I don't have plenty of storage on there. I don't know why it's doing that, but I'm having to adjust on the fly and learn as I go. Last night having to record this and fireworks going off literally on July 11th right outside my window. Like, what are we doing? A random cat's coming up to my window right now and meowing like crazy. I hope it's not in the video, but it's all these like goofy things that make this more difficult than I ever thought it would be. But overall, I'm enjoying the process, really enjoying, really appreciate anybody tagging along on this, trying to make the best content that I can, the most valuable of lessons that I've learned. So hopefully it can help others, and hopefully it sharpens me as well, just trying to do this and learn the skill set. So until next time, hope you guys have a great week. Life is great. Go make the most of it. Invest your time wisely. Think about what you're going to do this next week. Think about what your time is. Think about what the return of it is. Find some discomfort and seek it. Go attack a fear or a challenge. I'm telling you, that return you're going to get is going to be worth it. See you next week.